If you've got a story about Bigfoot you think is worth telling, send it in. You can send your email to me at contact@buckeyebigfoot.com. Welcome back to Buckeye Bigfoot. Now, you know how things sometimes happen in pairs or in threes. Well, that's kind of how tonight's pair of stories happened. I got one earlier this week, and it was a little too short to put on its own in a video, so I set it aside. I thought, well, something will come in. And sure enough, I got the second one late last night. And both emails have a little something in common. They're both memories from a while back. Now, I took it as a sign that these two needed to be put together. So here they are. Now, the first one is from a listener out of Washington State, and he wrote about what the neighbor told him when he was young and growing up. He just calls this old man Mr. Hammond. Are you ready? Me too. Let's get to it. I must have been 12 or 13 the first time Mr. Hammond talked to me as an equal. He really wasn't much for small talk. Didn't wave at you when you passed. He just wasn't that kind. But that night, he waved me on over, and I sat down on the porch with him. Said he had a story I ought to hear. Now, Mr. Hammond lived near the edge of what we called Railroad Hollow. That was a long, winding stretch of woods where an old rail line used to run before it got shut down in the 1940s. Most folks avoided it, though no one could tell you exactly why other than the place just felt wrong. Some said it was too quiet. Now, Mr. Hammond said the story that he was going to tell me happened in 1954. I used to walk that old grade, he said, talking about the railroad, back when I had 2 good knees. Had a couple dogs. They loved it. No cars, no folks, just trees and quiet. Good walk for us. One morning, he said, him and his hounds had set out early as usual. There was a low fog hanging around the trees, thick, he said, like woolly cotton. They hit that railroad hollow, and all of a sudden the dogs stopped dead, refused to budge. They just stood there, tails tucked, bodies quivering, ears flat, nose working the wind. He said he'd never quite seen 'em act like that. Then, from somewhere ahead, he heard a faint sound. Then he heard it again, and it was clearer, louder, perhaps closer. It was a baby crying, he said. It was high-pitched, weak, but coming from just around the bend up ahead on the railroad tracks, somewhere in the trees off to the side, yet it also sounded like it might be coming closer. But the only thing was, it didn't change, he said, like a real baby's cry would. It kept going over and over with the same pitch, same rhythm, same exact length of time, over and over like some weird loop. He took a step forward, and he said the dogs whined and tried to back up, tried to stop him from going forward. Suddenly, his stomach turned. He knew something wasn't right. That crying he was hearing wasn't real. He said that his mouth suddenly went dry, and he felt like all the hair on the back of his neck was pricking him like a million little needles. He said he knew to listen to his instinct, and he began to back out of the hollow very slow, but he never would turn his back on the railroad tracks. He said the fog all around felt like it was pushing up against him, like the trees wanted to close up around him. He felt the dogs felt it too. They couldn't get out of there fast enough. He said they made it home, locked the doors, and he just sat there for hours waiting and listening. Finally, after some time, the baby crying, which he said followed him home, finally stopped. Now, he thought about it all night. The next morning, he said he'd had enough. He figured he had just spooked himself over nothing. And being the man he was going to sort it out. So he went right back there, just him this time, left the dogs at home. The fog was out there again that morning, which happened a lot more back then than now, he said. He walked straight there, stood and listened. It was very quiet, too quiet when he thought about it, but the thing he didn't hear was that crying. So he got brave and he walked to the place where he thought he heard the crying, but he saw something else. There was a line of trees. No, he said there was a wall of trees. Whole trees pulled up out of the ground and lined up. One look, and he knew what it was. It felt like a kill zone that he would set up if he was hunting. If he had followed that baby crying sound, he's sure that he would have stepped away from the tracks and been herded right along this wall of trees before he knew it. A kill zone, he called it. Those were his exact words. Trees pulled up out of the ground like matchsticks, lined up, forcing someone to go somewhere. Spaced just enough apart at first, you wouldn't have caught on, except they looked odd. An animal might not have caught it, but a human would. Then those trees got closer, and there was no way you could have backed out. I listened to what he was telling me, and I sat there trying to picture what that looked like. Then he told me real quiet. Whatever it wasn't just passing through. It was waiting, and I think it wanted me to hear that cry. It wanted me to follow it. I bet it's used it before, and it's been successful. Then the old man looked out across the yard, into the trees where the forest started, and he said, that railroad hollow's been empty a real long time, son, but there's still something down there. Don't you ever go back there. Well, I never did. I'd always been warned away from it, though I wasn't quite sure why. Railroad tracks are supposed to be dangerous, right? Even if there are no running trains. But I had to ask him, did you ever see it? I think he finished a whole can of Rainier beer before he finally answered. Took so long, I figured he wasn't going to answer. And he would do that sometimes, just stub up and not talk like someone was arrested and he'd said too much. Just when I was thinking that I might as well go on home, he quietly said, "Yeah." I waited. Yeah? Yeah, what? Yeah, what? I wanted to ask. Finally, he said, "Yeah, I saw it. A few weeks after." He suddenly asked me to go get him another beer. I ran like the wind to the old fridge and got it for him, then settled back down on the old glider on the porch, waiting and hoping that he hadn't lost track of what he was saying. I didn't have to wait long. He wanted to tell me this story now. He started and said, "You see, after that tree thing, I didn't walk down that hollow any more. No, sir. But there were some nights I heard that baby crying sound. And some nights it was so close I couldn't sleep for all the noise. The dogs would get under the bed, and they would not come out for anything. And that was happening every night." Now, the faster the old man drank that beer down, the faster his story came out. All right, so this one night, listen up, kiddo. I couldn't stand it, you see. That crying was right outside. The dogs under the bed again, not coming out for anything. I got my shotgun. I'd had enough. I went out on the porch. I looked all around, but it couldn't be seen in the light. Soon as I walked out, I could tell by the sound. It went back further into the darkness. It was trying to lure me off the porch. No, sir, I wasn't doing that. I was fed up. I walked to the end of the porch. I looked down the one side of the house. Nothing there. Then Mr. Hammond stopped and looked at me. I waited. Well, then I walked to the other end of the porch, and I did the same. Only I couldn't. I couldn't look down the side of the house, that is. I stuck my head around the corner from the porch, and it was there, blocking out everything. Mr. Hammond pointed over to one end of his porch. "Right there, right around that corner," he said. I could have touched it, and I almost did. I was on pins and needles, waiting to hear what it was, what it looked like. He was driving me crazy waiting. Now, listen up, boy. If that wasn't a Sasquatch, I tell you, there aren't any on this earth. There now. He finally said it. That hairy SOB. Saw it from the porch light when it leaned toward me. Ugliest thing I ever saw. What did it look like? I asked. I just had to know. Don't be a danged fool, boy, he said. Don't you know what a Sasquatch of these here parts look like? Well, I knew from TV, of course, but I wanted to hear it from someone that actually saw one, and I said that to him. He looked at me, gulped down the last of the beer in that can, crumpled it, tossed it over to me. I knew it meant get him another, which I did as fast as I could. I figured gophering around for him that night was a small price to pay for this story. Its head was to the top of the porch ceiling, he said as he pointed up to the corner of the porch, which stood off the ground probably about 9 feet. Big old head on it, like a watermelon, he said. Same size, same shape, big old watermelon. But it sat down real low on the shoulders, like a football helmet on top of football padding. Its face was ugly. Lordy, was its face ugly. How am I supposed to describe that kind of ugly? I can't, boy. I'm just telling you I can't. But no doubt about it, it was a Sasquatch. And believe it or not, that's how it all ended. My mom suddenly interrupted everything, calling me home from down the way. It was very dark now. I should have already been home. And now I had to walk home in the dark in what I now thought of as Sasquatch territory. Now, he told me that story in about 1992 or 1993. We ended up moving from there in 1995. I don't know whatever happened to Mr. Hammond. When we moved, I never heard from him or talked to him again. Our next story is from a fella named Ben, and that's the only name he gave. Now, Ben is what he calls a forestry tech. He didn't want to give his exact title. He says he spent more time walking around forests than most of us could possibly comprehend. Ben worked the wildfire recovery zones out in Oregon back in the early 2000s. Said he never gave much thought to those old legends until the day he saw something still walking around in the ash. I was 28 the year the Biscuit Fire tore through Oregon. That fire ended up burning around 500,000 acres in the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest between southern Oregon and northern California. I had been working fires for about 6 years at that point. That year I worked fire lines for a while and then stuck around as part of the survey team. My job back then was to mark some dangerous snags, check for soil erosion, and flag anything that might slide in the next rain. Basically, putting eyes on everything. Post-burn work is very quiet work. You can stay out there for days at a time, and you are usually alone. There's nothing but burned earth and black sticks that were once trees all around you. That and a lot of white ash everywhere. It looks a little bit like some Hollywood set of the apocalypse. My first day out, though, this time, I saw something that I've never seen before, haven't seen since, and I'm really okay with it if I never see it again. I know now what I know. I was about 4 miles deep in when I saw it. I thought it was a bear at first. Yeah, I know, everyone says that, but it is the first thing that you think when you see a big, dark shape out in the forest, burned or not. Then my immediate thought on the heels of that was, how on earth had it survived? I saw it down in a hollowed-out ravine. Fire sizzled all the water out of it. The shape was moving unevenly. It looked to be limping. And then I saw it wasn't moving like any bear. All of this was going through my mind all at once. its size, shape, color, location, movement, and I am still trying to think that it's a bear. But I know it can't be, because it's walking on 2 legs, upright. And it was limping, yes, but it was being careful where it walked, much as I would have been. 2 legs, long arms, 2 of those, standing up, walking, 1 foot right in front of the other. I was about 100 yards, plus or minus a few, up above. I looked down through my binoculars to get a better look. It confirmed what I had been thinking, a Bigfoot of some kind. I wasn't sure I believed in them until that moment, but I never didn't believe in them. You understand the difference? And I was looking at it carefully, and I saw this Bigfoot, and I think that's what it was. It was in really bad shape. The leg bottoms on it were raw and burned, looking like it had literally walked through fire. There was no hair on the lower legs or the top of the feet, and while I didn't see the bottom of the feet, I imagined them raw and bloody. It looked bloody everywhere I looked on the legs and feet, raw and burned. Looking the whole body over, I saw a lot of the fur was missing, or it was shorter as if it had been scorched. I crouched down very slowly just to the side of a blackened pine, and I watched it for maybe a minute or more. I saw the front of it had the missing hair and patchy bits. There was less of that patchy burn on the backside of it. I really couldn't imagine how it had survived, but it did somehow. As I watched it painfully trying to pick its way through, pure pity came over me, and I suddenly stood up without thinking, and I yelled out to it. I had medical on me, of course. I could help. What I was thinking, I don't know. Well, it heard me. It took 1 look up my way, and it turned and hightailed it right out of that ravine, right up the side of the hill and along another ridge. Then it was gone. That took about 7 or 8 minutes. I really felt bad. It was clearly in pain, and I had made it run without meaning to. That's not what I wanted. A little discouraged and a little unsettled, I cut my way back over to the old fire road I had come in on. Then I walked back to my truck. Whole way, I was thinking everything over. By the time I got to my truck, I was calm. I knew what I'd seen and how I was going to handle it. I did not make a report. I did not say a word to anyone for the last 22 years. I'm going to retire in just a few years, and until then, I'm not going to be too open talking about it. I have a pension at stake. I'm sure you understand. But I now wonder, when there's a fire, how many Bigfoot out there will survive? How many will die? And if some die, where are those bodies? Because I tell you truthfully, on all the fires I've worked, I've never seen one. All right, well, they say fire is usually the end of things. It's a cleansing, a reset, a purge. But maybe sometimes fire leaves things behind. It doesn't take everything, and it leaves things altered, things too resilient to give in to the fire. I think Ben found one of those things. And Ben has a point. It's likely that not all Bigfoot escape forest fires. So where are the bodies? I know we've all heard about black helicopters and the government and cover-ups. But is that the answer? Let me know what you think. All right, well, I just have a couple comments that were left on some recent videos for you, and, I do like sharing these. This first comment is referring directly to the area that was mentioned in the video the comment was left on, which is titled, Mama Bigfoot Was Injured. That was released July 8th, 2025, and here's what Flying Dutchman Podcast said. We live about 45 minutes west of Pioneer, and there is the Jackson Rancheria Casino on the way where we take our RV on occasion. One night, relaxing looking at the stars, we heard what sounded like the Ohio howl. It was almost 20 seconds long. We both said, Bigfoot. There's a lot of activity, in my opinion, including a sighting 7 miles from our home on the BFRO website back in 2010. Keep up the good work. This next comment was left on the video titled, "This is How Sasquatch Kills Humans," which was released November 15th, 2024. And here's what they said. Haven't seen, but my sons and I were in Kangaroo Park in Colorado back in July 1994. Had already been to Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, and our last campsite was here with a big Coleman tent, air mattresses and sleeping bags, metal Coleman ice chest, and lots of food already set up. Was sitting around fire pit, and all of a sudden a bobcat jumped between my two boys and over the fire. It startled all of us. So we decided it was time to put the fire out and go to sleep in our big Coleman tent. As we all three were in there for a while, I was about to fall asleep. Heard something walking around the campsite. Things were being moved around. And all of a sudden, something went between tree and tent and pushed down on top of our tall, big Coleman tent, and then just walked on. I felt frozen. I couldn't even turn my head or body, only my eyes, and then I fell asleep. Next morning I asked my boys, and they agreed. All right, everyone. That's all I have for you tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it all. I know I did. Thank you for listening. And you know, I do want an email from you if you've got a story that you'd like to share. And until we meet up again, please always remember, absence of proof is not proof of absence. Thanks for listening.